Hi, everybody. I'm hoping I'm having a much better reception this time. I was having some technical difficulties. Hi, everybody. I am Jen Pillow White. We're just a few minutes before showtime. I just wanted to set everything up before we are ready to go. I had some technical difficulties last week, so I don't want to have that problem again. So we're just going to take another minute or two, and then we're going to get started. I hope everyone's doing great. I miss you all terribly, terribly, terribly. But we will be together again very soon. So we're just going to take another minute or so before we get started. Today we're going to talk about the diaphragm and how it relates to the lungs and what we can do exercise-wise, lifestyle-wise in order to be able to strengthen and improve lung health now, definitely before, hey, Karen, it's working. Yes! I want to make sure that our lungs are as well as can be now before, or heaven forbid, if we ever do get ill, either with the coronavirus or with really anything, any other respiratory things. So we're just going to take another minute. We got about another 60 seconds before showtime, and then we will get going. I hope to be able, I'm going to give you a call a little later, Karen. I know that you had called me a couple days ago, and we want to touch base. So I hope to be able to hear your lovely voice a little bit later today. So let's just take another minute. Have another little quick show of Lucy Lulu. All right. Hey, it's 12 o'clock. Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's broadcast of Facebook Live from yours truly, Jen Pillow White, from Michigan Associates of Acupuncture and Integrative Medicine. We are here at the White House, our favorite White House. Like you, I am also stationed at home, but I'm always kind of thinking about you and trying to make sense of all this crazy world that's going on around here. So today we're going to try to see if we can come up with a couple different views of how to make your body healthier and more peaceful. Hopefully you guys are all doing really well. I miss you terribly. I am the forever optimist. I'm hoping, to always see the silver lining in every situation. And I've really enjoyed my time being able to spend time with my kids and my husband and my cat. Also, another bright side I thought of today is I have fingernails for the first time in forever because I've been able to let them grow. I can't do that in manual practice. So it's kind of weird being able to have long fingernails. I haven't had that since I was on maternity leave with the rock stars. So let's see here. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about exercising the diaphragm or stretching or, kind of improving diaphragm flexibility in relation to how it affects the lungs. And then we're going to talk about a few other things that we could do that will help the lungs as well, in regards to keeping them as healthy as possible. As we know, this COVID-19 particularly targets our lungs. And so in the world that we live in, unfortunately, our lungs aren't quite as healthy as they ought to be. We either don't drink enough water, we have way too much pollution, we may smoke, we may have poor posture, we may do any host of different things, including, pent-up emotions. So what we want to be able to do is try to make sure that this area is as healthy as possible. So heaven forbid if we do come across the virus, that our body, first of all, our immune system, which we talked about last week, can be as strong as possible, but also that the actual organ and the surrounding tissues can be as healthy as possible. So let's see here. Our lungs are going to be, these breathers of life that are, are nestled within our chest cavity, within our rib cage. You have your right and your left lung. They are going to be on a microscopic level going down to an alveoli, which almost like grape clusters. And that's where the magic of the air or the oxygen carbon dioxide exchange occurs, down at the very smallest of levels in the lungs. And so they need to be able to be stretchable, basically having these little clusters be able to expand and then to retract in order to allow this air exchange to occur, as well as to get any debris that we may have inhaled to be able to force it out. So the lungs are, really the magic of our life, to be able to, to take in the oxygen as well as to expel the carbon dioxide. The inner walls of the lungs are going to be covered with epithelial tissue, mucus-producing cells, which are going to be able to kind of lubricate the tissues, again, allowing for better flexibility. Over top of the lungs, we have a fluid-filled bag of sorts called your pleura. And your pleura is actually a big, a really important piece to this factor too, in that is it's a really thin two-layered bag that's filled with a very thin layer of fluid, and it completely surrounds the lungs. And what it does, its main goal is that one side is attached to the inner rib cage, the other side is attached to the lungs. When the lungs expand and retract, there's not a lot of room in your chest. I mean, pretty much everything is pretty stockpiled against each other. So when the lungs would expand and retract, they would have the potential of kind of rubbing or grinding against other structures, whether it be ribs or be diaphragm or it be a heart or a thymus or whatever it might be. And we don't want that, because we know definitely in our bodies, friction increases inflammation. Inflammation creates a whole host of different irritations. So the goal in our body is to reduce that, that friction. So our pleura does that. By having the lungs expand, what the pleura does, with it being fluid lined inside, is it allows the lungs to move effortlessly and slide. So there's really no likelihood of any type of friction. So your pleura is another big major piece to this puzzle. Then you have your bronchus, which is basically your windpipe. Your windpipe bringing in the air from your nose or your mouth, through the throat down into the chest. And your bronchus not only delivers the air in and allows the air to come out, it also allows for secretions to come out. Because again, that debris that we might have breathed in gets down to the alveoli level, that the fluid or the secretions in our lungs, as well as some other movement mechanisms, is going to allow some of this debris to be able to be pushed out. The bronchus allows for a lot of that. So we need good, healthy bronchus action too, in order for good, proper breathing. Now, where is the magic of the action of inspiration and expiration occurring? It's not that the lungs are actually going to flex and relax. Where the magic is actually at our respiratory diaphragm. And our respiratory diaphragm attaches at the lower end of our rib cage, specifically in your lower thoracic and upper lumbar spine, and then the lower ribs. And that tissue is membranous, it's fascial, as well as muscle. And so it needs to, that diaphragm is the magic to allow for this inhale and exhale to occur. What happens is at relaxed state, the diaphragm is kind of like a parachute of sorts, or like a dome. When we go to inhale, with contraction, it's going to contract down, and it starts to force into our abdomen in a sense. And when it does that, it draws the chest cavity, or basically the lung cavity, to allow for expansion. And it starts to expand, drawing in air, and our lungs fill. And if we allow that diaphragm to really bellow down, we can get a really deep breath in. Then what happens is the diaphragm is then going to relax, and it goes back up to dome shape, allowing a little bit better freedom in the abdomen, but then causing the lung field of the chest to start to narrow. And that allows for the exhale of air. That's under normal passive breathing, what would naturally happen. And so now, of course, when we're doing forceful exhale or inhale, we're going to engage some of our secondary muscles, whether it be our scalenes or our pec minor or some of our intercostal muscles, the muscles between our ribs. That allows for like when you're exercising or when you're really trying to make a point like, or that's a little more exaggerated. That's not what I'm really kind of talking about. I'm talking about the natural, normal, non-conscious kind of breathing that you're doing, or even conscious when we're going to do in a little bit, when we're going to actually try to exercise our diaphragm. Let's see here. So I'm seeing all these wonderful, oh, there I go. Oh no. Something went wrong. Oh no, I don't want that. Hold on. Oh, goodness. Oh, there I am. Sorry. I went to go click something and my screen went away. I apologize. Anyways, let's see here. So, a couple things that where I'm going to get these principles for are really from one of the practices that I do, and that is called visceral manipulation. Visceral manipulation is a manual modality that was developed by J.P. Barral, who's a French osteopath and physiotherapist, and he's frankly brilliant. And what he has found is that, in manual medicine, we look at the superficial fascia, we look at the muscles, we look at bone, but really up to his time, no one really talked about the organs. The organs themselves can be strongly affected by dysfunction. Physical dysfunction, whether an organ be stiff or immobile, not really, having full flexibility. So what he started doing in his practice is he was trying to put a little bit more intention and focus on maybe some of the organs that were beneath his hands when he was working with his patients. And he was able to locate areas of being able to palpate the organs with firm but completely comfortable touch. And with further research, he was able to determine each of these organs and how they basically anchor to the skeleton, as well as to the musculoskeletal system. All of our organs in our body are suspended in like little connective tissue hammocks of sorts. And these hammocks help hold our organs in a very precise place in our body. And not only do these fascial hammocks or these soft tissue hammocks hold the organ in place, it allows the organ to move and return to position. So when we move our body, we not only are moving our muscles, contracting, relaxing them and moving our joints, but our organs are moving with us. So every time we bend down to touch our toes, we have organs that have to shift and slide into a different position. And then we go to reach up to the sky, those organs need to shift and kind of almost return back to a little bit more of a neutral position. That's constantly happening in our body. So that soft tissue that can be affected by different dysfunction also can include our organs. So that leads us back to what I was mentioning about the lungs and the diaphragm and the pleura and the bronchus, is that these organs have specific membranous or ligamentous or fascial attachments to the musculoskeletal system. So what we're going to talk about when we start talking about some of these home exercises is very much about posture and how we're holding ourselves in regards to allowing the organs to be free and to function the way they need to. Because if these tissues are tight and stiff, first of all, they shift the organ's position, and by doing that, they don't allow the organs free action, per se. Okay, so along his 40 years of practice, Dr. Barral has also noticed a couple things, interestingly enough, with lung issues. He would call people like lung people or diaphragm people. And some of the things that he found in these patients who had consistent restrictions in some of these areas is he would find that these individuals commonly were what he called too much or too little. They were like one or the other end of the polar extremes, right? So, he would find persons either being really on the shy, overly introverted, overly self-conscious, low self-opinion, I don't know how do I say that, because I don't want to make that negative, but having a really more of a diminutive kind of personality versus the other pole being almost like this really dominating and really strict and rigid individual where they tend to be really stuck in their ways and almost and such. So he sees this of these two poles. He definitely sees a very similar relationship between both individuals or both poles, that they have poor boundaries. Either that they consume go jump past other people's boundaries, or they have problems with other people getting past their boundaries and keeping, the defined edges clear. I think all of us have those kind of troubles. So that's just one of the things that, he would see a lot of these persons with. He'd also see persons, being very slumped in posture, so they would have their head forward, shoulders rounded. That naturally just kind of makes sense that it's hard to breathe through this area, or you have tough labored breathing. He'd also see persons that were very rigid, in posture. And again, you may have maybe better posture in a sense, but if you're not moving, because we're supposed to be a moving entity, if we're not moving, your lungs aren't going to be able to move and fully inflate. Okay, so enough of that boring stuff for you guys. Let's talk about a few things that we can do ourselves at home to encourage better diaphragm action, and then most importantly, better lung action. And that is so we can keep our lungs healthy now, all right? Heaven forbid, if you're struggling with some of the COVID issues that have been going around, this definitely can be extremely helpful now. But really, our big goal is about prevention, so that we can keep ourselves healthy now and try to keep us safe from any of these current issues, as well as anything down the line, like a common cold. All right. So a couple of the things that we want to look at is, first of all, one of my favorites that I talk about in practice is wall angels. And many of you have heard me talk about this time and time again. So I need a wall. So apologize, I'm going to have to do a little bit of housekeeping here. I didn't want to take my picture down too early, because then you think, wow, that's a pretty boring looking wall you got there, Jen. Okay, let's see how we can make this work, because my broadcasts are going to be in motion, right? All right, so what we need to do is, you can't see my feet, but my feet are about a foot away from the molding, from the wall, edge of the wall. My keister's against the wall, my shoulders are against the wall, and I'm gonna put them up, all right? And what I'm gonna do is, I want to get my head, my shoulders, my elbows, and the dorsums of my hands against the wall the best you can. I tend to be tight through this area. All right, so I definitely am not the model perfect posture for this one. But what you're going to do is, after you get yourself into position, you want to slowly and methodically bring your elbows up. And while you do that, you want to keep your backside against the wall, your shoulders against the wall, the elbows against the wall, and your wrists against the wall, bringing it all the way up. And you hold it for a few seconds, and then you come down. And as you come down and you get past the our starting point, we now go further and further. My wrists are puckering away from the wall. And you just take your time with it. You go as far as you can without breaking too much form. And then you come back. Up, 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 up. Slowly. And each time you go up and down, hopefully it gets a little easier. A little easier, and a little easier. So it's a little better that time. What I feel when I'm doing that is, I feel the periscapular area of my ribs or my shoulder blades really stretching and contracting, because they're really trying to keep my blades against the wall the best possible. It's a great way to mobilize that shoulder blade, as well as to stretch a lot of those muscles, especially on the back side of your rib cage, to allow you to have a little better freedom to stand up naturally. So that's first one. Second one I want to talk about is a Doorframe exercise, and that is where you want to stretch some of your pec muscles. That's, again, where I tend to be more tight. And again, it's where you just come to a typical Doorframe. Yikes. And what you're going to do is, you're going to take hands on either side of that door frame. All right, and my feet are a little bit in to the other room, right? And what I want to do is when I'm ready, holding on with both hands, I'm going to lean through that door frame. And you just hold it, all right? You're not pushing yourself, you're really letting gravity take you. And by doing this, it's stretching the pec major and minor attachments right through here and going through the front side of the rib cage, okay? Stretching. So as you come through, you want to hold it for, 5 to 10 seconds, come back out, relax, shake it out, come back in, and stretch through again. Good. And then you come back through. So I would say doing the wall angels like 10 times. 1, 2, 3, doing full revolutions. And then like doing the door frame, maybe, twice a day. Or if you got time, hey, what else do we got to do? You could do more. All right, let's see. What else could we talk about? Then there's a pelvic twist. Now, one of the many muscles that are piece of this puzzle is going to be your intercostals. Your intercostals are the muscles that kind of go through, in between your different ribs that will allow for expansion and retraction, but they also allow for when you're moving and stretching and such to allow your flank to be able to bow. These are the main contributors or main relationship tied to the pleura. The pleura, again, is that slick bag that allows the organs to be able, the lungs to expand and retract. If your pleura is stiff, either glued against the rib cage wall or is just dry and brittle, you're not, first of all, going to get that expansion that the lungs need, but it's also going to be very, cause a little bit more friction than what we really want. So we need to stretch that area. So again, this is not going to be the most glamorous of things, but to show you quickly is where you are going to be laying on the floor. Laying on the floor, okay? I can't see it as well as I would hope. Hopefully you can figure what I'm talking about. Is you're going to be on the floor. You're going to have your arms laying to your side, hands up, all right? My head is against, everything's against. My hips are flexed, my knees are flexed, my feet are flat on the floor. And what I'm going to do is keeping my arms and shoulders and definitely my neck against, staying in place. I'm going to go ahead and drop my knees to the side. You'll feel probably a lot of that stretch through your lower back and lumbars, but you should also feel a little bit through your ribs if you're tight through those intercostals. You're going to hold it for about 5-10 seconds. And then you're going to go the other way. You're not pushing your knees all the way down to the ground. You're going as far as you can without your shoulders and arms coming off the ground. And hold it for about 5 to 10 seconds and go back and forth. All right. This pelvic twist feels really good. I highly recommend this one in the morning before you even get out of bed. All right. So that's a good one in mobilizing the intercostals. All right. What else we got? Also with that same position is another one that's really good. Back to the floor I go. Let's see here. What we're going to do is hands and legs are in the same position. So my hips are flexed, my knees are flexed, my feet are flat on the floor, my arms are on the floor. I'm going to relax my knees so they can kind of splay out to the side. What I want to do is consciously taking my head, going from really head down to feet, step by step. Taking each section of my body and see if I can get it to flatten against the floor. So as I do that, obviously my head's on the floor, but then I'm trying to straighten and flatten my neck to get closer to the floor if possible. And as I do that, then I'm going to go into my thoracics, which are my upper ribs, or my upper back, and I'm going to press them into the floor. And then the small of my back or my lumbars, get those into the floor. It takes a moment or two. For some of us, it takes longer. And then we get our feet into the floor. And appreciate that straightness that allows. That's very helpful for many of us who have a more rounded or slouchy kind of posture. We don't need to get our upper thoracics not only stretched out in the sense of being more mobile, but also to straighten up. Also very helpful for my scoliotic clients. That particular exercise, again, seems like nothing. It is a big deal. If you really take the time to do it, you'll notice the difference. Because by doing that, it allows a little bit more mobility in portions of your spine that you probably weren't really aware were restricted. All right. And again, coming back to the pleura, that pleura has specific ligamentous attachments to the cervical spine. So, a lot of our posture in life is this head forward. We don't really want to encourage that for many reasons, including for lung health. Let's see here. Another one we're going to talk about is exercise. Just get out there and move. That movement will help get, in exercising, whether running, walking, doing jumping jacks, doing weightlifting. What it's doing is it is encouraging better influx and outpour of oxygen and carbon dioxide and movement of the lungs. And again, when I mentioned earlier is that we have those secondary muscles that are involved in our breathing, again, scalene, pec minor, intercostals and such. Those are really exercised during exercise. Let's see here. We also want to just stretch. Doing yoga really goes a long, long way. Half moon is one of my favorites in regards to, half crescent moon, being able to get those intercostals really stretched. I could sit in that pose forever. I mean, it just feels so good. And one form of yoga that I particularly like is Kundalini yoga, which is very much about focusing your chi, your energy, connecting your energy to the world. But also you use something that we call breath of fire, where you really do an exaggerated breath. It's not a breath that you would normally breathe in normal life, but it's a way of good exercising, all right? And then two more things that we should be done, and one of them is being bar hanging, where if you have the opportunity to have like a jungle gym in your yard or you have your own home gym, you don't go to the public parks because those are closed. But if you have this, doing an overarm hanging onto the bar and just letting your body hang. You can do your pull-ups if you want, but just letting yourself gently hang. That opens up this portion, spreads the ribs, and definitely, again, stretches that pleura. And then my last one is what I talked about 2 weeks ago, and that is that vagal breathing, that deep belly diaphragmatic breathing. That is really going to be exercising the diaphragm, but for the purpose of moving the lungs, as well as other organs, which I'm going to tie into that. And so just as a recap reminder, when you do vagal breathing, I recommend it when you're laying down, and you can either put a pillow on your abdomen, put it on your abdomen, or put your hands on your abdomen. And what you're going to do is you're going to take a nice slow inhale through the nose. And when you get to the end of the inhale, you want to do a little, and then you're going to hold it for 3-4 seconds, and then you're going to exhale through the mouth. And when you get to the end of it, you're going to do a little extra, huh. All right? And you're going to do this inhale, and you're going to get a big, big Buddha belly. You really want to see that pillow rise, or you feel your fingers really, come up high. You're going to expand that belly, and then when you exhale, you take the image of taking that navel and pressing it against your spine. And you're really not, but getting it closer and closer to your spine. You really want to force all of that out. Again, this is not natural breathing. This is exercise breathing. Okay. And so by doing this, for 5-10 times, you're going to, first of all, stimulate your vagus nerve, like we talked about 2 weeks ago, but you're also going to really stretch that diaphragm. All these different things that I talked about with the stretching and the pelvic twist and the intercostal stretches and the yoga and the bar stretches and all that, those all stretch all of those related related structures or related tissues, including the diaphragm. Belly breathing is really going to target it the most. So not only are you going to encourage better mobility and like stretching that really tight dome, but you can also give it a little bit more, moving power for that particular tissue. And it also stimulates the vagal response, which is stress reduction. When we're stressed, first of all, our vagus nerve gets shut off. And when we're stressed, we don't breathe well. We breathe shallow. We breathe here. We forget about abdomen breathing. That's a natural thing. So if we can consciously do exercises to slowly bring into conscious awareness abdominal or diaphragmatic breathing, it not only will help you breathe better and get debris and secretions out, as well as it will help reduce your stress response, all right, which we all need. So I would highly, 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 highly recommend that one particular exercise. If you can't do any of the others, that's fine. I mean, you don't have to do all of the others, but that one particular thing is really incredibly important. And the goal is about keeping us healthy now. And if heaven forbid, if we do succumb to any particular illness, whether it be COVID-19 or a common cold, the goal is about getting the debris out as well and as effectively as possible. And so we can encourage and continue our gas exchange that we need to live and to function. So that is my spiel for today. I highly recommend, reaching out to us if you have questions, or, if you want to just say hi, because we miss you so desperately. We are still offering that telesupport. So if you would like to talk to myself or to any of us, please give us a call at the office. We will reach out to you within, a short period of time, and we will be able to make that time to just reconnect and see what we might be able to help and offer, via distance. I can't really put my hands on you right now, and that's where a lot of the magic of the work that we do together is. But my caring ear is 100% always here for you. So if you're interested in scheduling a telesupport meeting, give us a call at the office. Our phones are answered Monday through Friday, 9 to 4:30. The telephone number is 248-737-7126. I hope to be able to talk to you soon. I miss you all. Be amazing, be awesome, be safe. Thanks.